Okay. Do you want to tell us? You can start wherever you want about Long Beach and you.
Say that again?
When were you born here?
Okay, I was born in 1929 on 218 West Market Street with a midwife. I was the last of 4 children, my mother's favorite. I was a spoiled brat. She never let me out of the house without being fully dressed. I have some pictures I can show you
Oh, that would be wonderful
when
to
I was
add.
a kid. And
how long did you live in that house?
we lived there around 1935. That's when the Depression really started to hit bad. And my father at the time owned a barber shop and a beauty parlor in the Lafayette building, which is the corner building at Edwards Boulevard.
Yes, right.
It was Jackson Boulevard at that time. And trying to think.
So he owned the barbershop and the
So around 1935, I'm trying to get the date straight anyway, but around 1935, things were very bad in America. And the Depression hit really bad. And we lost the house. And I don't remember it completely, but I remember some of the things that happened. We didn't have a place to live, and we lived behind the barber shop. He closed the beauty parlor down, and there was the beauty parlor part of it. He kept the barber shop open, and we lived. There was a bathroom there with a stall shower, and a kitchen, and an eating room. And we lived behind the barber shop at that time. And then around 1939, somewhere in there, I remember we moved over to 24 East Market Street. A friend of my father's owned a lot of property. His name was Floria, and he owned a business in scarves and gloves and hats and wool. He used to import from Japan and China, and he had a lot of properties. Very good friends with my father, and he sold them the house on East Market Street. And I know we lived there around 1939 because I graduated East School, 6th grade, in around 1939, and then went to Lindell, which is the new junior high. So I went to 7th through 12th grade there. Let me see. I remember we went to, there was a place on Neptune Boulevard, Mike's Ship Ahoy. It was a Neptune Boulevard, the restaurant. And we had walked straight up Market Street to the entrance to East School, was right there. And then my mother, my father, and I and my sister, we walked over, went to the graduate 6th grade, and then we walked to the boardwalk, and we stopped and had a hot dog and a soda at Neptune Boulevard. And then we walked on the boardwalk to Riverside and went to East Market Street where we lived. We stopped and we lived there, on East Market Street. A lot of families, a lot of old families were the Held family. They owned the plumbing business. The Leone family, Rennie, he owned the cab company at that time. There was Butter Cookies Bake Shop around there on Edwards Boulevard, on Park Place rather. And strangely enough, I used to deliver newspapers in that area on East Market Street, and I used to deliver papers to a couple named Arosamina. And little did I know that at the time, I was a kid delivering papers, she was an Irish lady, married to a Spanish man who worked in the post office. Later on, when I got married to my wife, Maureen, that was her aunt. She was from Ireland. And that was a true, real aunt. She was an actual blood relative. And strangely, how small Long Beach is, I'm delivering papers to her house, And later on, I find out that she's her real aunt, you know, and
It's a
that was
small
an interesting
world,
thing.
right? And even smaller in
And
Long Beach.
Another block up was the Fleischman family. They owned the Lincoln Mercury, Ford Lincoln Mercury dealership, and Stanley. He and I went to. There was another brother also, but Stanley. I went to high school with him, and his father used to sponsor the team. We had a basketball team. Father Barr, who's the priest at St. Mary's now, the Beach Catholic, he's in charge of all that. One of the first days I was in the summer, and I came up from Florida, and I met him in a sandwich shop on Park Street. And I told him, I said, yeah, welcome to Long Beach, welcome to St. Mary's. And he asked me, well, do you know a little bit of, I said, yeah. I said that hall, the parish hall, was built by the Navy construction company, the Seabees. They built that. Did you know that anyway? Yeah.
Didn't Marion say something?
Yeah, the Seabees, the Navy built that place.
Yeah.
And I was, as a kid, I played basketball in that gym, and that's where I first started athletically to CYO basketball. And I've been friends with Father Barr since.
Wow.
You know, I mean, really close. I have a private phone number.
What are the names of your family members?
Pardon me?
What are the names of your family members?
I have an older brother. I'm the last one. Everybody else has passed away. I had an older brother, Charles. He was an attorney in, he had his office in Oceanside. Swatsky's, there was a place called Swatsky's. He was on the second floor of that building. And he had worked for Joe Carlino, who was the Speaker of the New York State Assembly. And he worked for him. And I remember when I was in college, we went to the National Catholic College Invitation Tournament in 1952, and we played the game in Albany. And all his friends that he was working with in Albany, they all came to the game, and we did okay on that game. You know, we had I went to college on a basketball scholarship.
Wow.
Bobby Gertzen was the basketball coach, and before him was a man named Sam Sante, who was the basketball coach and director of athletics at Long Beach High. And I learned a lot from Bobby Gertzen. He's great. He had a summer camp also, but Sante's kid, later on, he became a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. And he took over the summer camp. And I sent my two children at the time to the summer camp up there, because he remembers me as, I remember him as a kid, because he knew I was friends with his father.
Did all your siblings stay in Long Beach also when they grew
up? The older brother lived in Rockville Center at the time when he had the Laurels. I had a brother, Alfred, he's the second one. He lived in East Meadow. He married a girl that worked for the United Nations, French girl. And I had a sister, Adele. She worked for the Long Beach school system as a teacher aide of some kind. And she had a couple of children. I'm still in contact with them. The one daughter comes down to the beach all the time. She still loves Long Beach. And she's the one that sent me all the pictures of, she had a photo album, and she sent me the pictures of me as a kid all dressed up.
Tell us about your wife. Did she grow up also in Long Beach?
Yeah, she was born in Long Beach also, Maureen. And the best looking girl in the whole world. That's a picture of my wife there.
She was very pretty.
You're right, she is beautiful.
Scotch-Irish girl.
She looks like Elizabeth Taylor to me.
Yeah.
Beautiful face, beautiful face.
She was
Do you want to
beautiful.
see
That's
if
the
you
mother of
can
my
I know
children.
her.
Yeah.
Okay. I meant to
So when
get
did
her
you
on
get
there.
married?
Pretty.
We got married in 1956, and September. That was the only vacation you could get, so we decided you couldn't get married in the summer because I had spent after college I went into the army, got drafted into the army, and I got assigned to special services. I had played basketball at the University of Scranton, which is a Jesuit college. It was an all boys school. I had gotten a scholarship to go to play basketball there, and when I finished college, I went in the army, and they put me on the basketball team, the division basketball team.
Wow.
And I played basketball in various jobs in the off season that they gave you. And
Was this during the Korean War?
say it again.
During the Korean War that you were
During
in
the
the Army?
Korean War, yeah. I was drafted. I graduated college in 1952, and went right in the army. In September, I went in the army. And I spent 2 years in the army, and then I came out. And during the time I was a lifeguard, we took the whole bunch of us took the police test as a challenge. We said, "Who the heck ever thought of being a policeman?" So we were lifeguards at the time, and all you want to do is work on the beach, look at girls, and drink beer. You know, that was the. What else does a lifeguard do?
That's it.
And you got paid at the same time. You know. Oh, we took the police exam.
Yeah, tell us about that.
And we got put on the list. We all passed it anyway, you know.
Was that Long Beach?
Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
We took that test. And when I was in the army, I got a letter said, "You've been appointed a policeman
Oh.
at $3,000 a year." But I couldn't take it. I was in the army at the time. But they sent a letter that you are a policeman. When you come out, you have 30 days or so, 60 days, I forget what it was, to take the appointment or not take it, one or the other. And when I came out of the army, I went and saw a couple of, they called me up and said, what are you going to do? There was a commissioner of public safety at the time, a guy named Phil Cohut, a very strong Democratic leader. And I was a registered Republican at the time because my brother worked for Joe Carlino, and I registered Republican. And they told me, he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, I want to go to school. I want to go to law school." And he said, "I'll speak to Chief Nolan, and we'll figure out a schedule for you that you can go to school and work." So I enrolled at Brooklyn Law School, and I worked 4 p.m. till midnight, but every weekend I worked. So I got my 5 days in that way, my 40 hours that way. And
Did you go to school during the day then?
say it again?
You went to school during the day?
I went to school during the day, and I graduated law school. I have a Juris Doctor degree.
Wow.
I thought I was going to go into the, recently when I did that, I said maybe I'll go into the FBI. That's in you had to be a law school graduate to get into the FBI in those days. And I had made friends with a few FBI agents, and they said, I said, "Where do you think I'm going to get assigned to if I join?" They said, "Probably the worst place in America. You know, any place, because everyone wants to get out of those places." So they put young kids, young FBI agents, into those places. And there was a place that the openings were going to be in St. Louis, Missouri. And I was married at the time, by this time. And I think I had one son at the time also. But I didn't take it. I didn't want that job. But by that time, I think I was I was a sergeant already by that time, 1957. And then so I didn't take that. I stayed on the police department, and I took the sergeant's test. And I got appointed a sergeant in 1957, and at the time they were having trouble on the beach, and it continued. So around, jumping ahead a little bit, around 1965, city manager was a guy named Forster Vogel, and he said, I was a sergeant at the time, and he said, and I knew him, I was president of the Superior Police Benevolent Association at the time, and we used to have a dance at the Lido Hotel, a fundraising dance at the Lido Hotel, and we brought in all kinds of entertainment. And I was in charge of all that, so I got to know a lot of people from running that dance. And I got to know Forster very well, and he said to me, listen, we're having trouble down the beach. He says, I want you to take over the lifeguards. I said, I don't want to lead the police department. No, he said, no, I'll assign you there. I'll assign you as a sergeant. Your duty will be to take care of the lifeguards and take care of the beach. I said, as long as it doesn't affect my retirement.
Right.
And you know, I'm very careful that way. I have a family. I said, so he assigned me in 1965. I started as a chief lifeguard, and I continued up until 75. And I made a lot of nice young men, and I'm still friendly with those lifeguards. We go to lunch all the time. I have a guy that lives in upstate New York. He drives down 2.5 hours just to have lunch with me. I mean, he brings his wife and his daughter, you know. He said the best time he ever had in his life was working on the lifeguards. And that's why he said that before. I said, what can be better than working as a lifeguard? You're getting paid to drink beer and look at girls, you know. So.
But this picture we have of you in 1950, you were a lifeguard then, right?
Right. I started lifeguarding and I graduated high school in 1948 and went right on the lifeguards right then and there. And I stayed there till 52, I think 52 when I went during college. So all this is during college. 48, I graduated high school, so I had just started. By 50 already, I was a sophomore in college. It was a terrific experience. All those guys, they're still, Dennis Carey, you have interviewed Dennis, he's a retired doctor. He always comes down to visit me in Florida. He lives on Wisconsin Street. A lot of those kids, they all still, I call them kids, they're all retired doctors. But they were kids with me, they were kids.
Right.
And I treated them like as if they were my own children.
Nice.
And that's why they still have great admiration and respect for me.
So going back to when you were a little kid growing up in Long Beach, what was a typical summer day like for you when you lived here?
Well, before I was a lifeguard, we used to just, when you were a kid growing up in Long Beach, young kid, in the summer, you couldn't get a job anywhere. You were too young to do anything. And we used to go down to Magnolia Boulevard. I lived at 218 West Market Street at the time, growing up. And we used to go down and go for blue crabs along the jetty, along the bulkhead there. And we'd go for the blue claws with a net and everything, pull them off and then we'd cook them, and the next day we'd go out the same thing, but we'd already cooked them. We'd eaten that for lunch, eating the crabs for lunch. And there was a guy named Robert Liederfein, who lived on Walnut Street, right off Magnolia Boulevard. And we became very friendly. And we used to say names backwards, So Robert is Trebor. And we used to call him Trebor Kadidofriedel. That was backwards, Liederfein.
And what's your name backwards?
Yeah, Anobrack. Yeah, Anobrack is backwards. That's why we had that. It was funny. So you hear that, or you went swimming down to the beach. You should go down, and there was, of course, there was the carousel on the boardwalk. They had the bumper cars there. Kalen's Tutti Frutti ice cream was there. Hebrew National was up on the board. So as a kid growing up, you had a wealth of things to do as a kid. Everything connected with the water, either clamming or blue cloth off the jetty or going swimming. And of course, you're looking up at the lifeguards as a young kid. You go, oh my God, look at the size of that guy. Oh my God. You aspire to be the same thing.
Right.
At least all the kids I knew, that's all we ever wanted to do is that you look up at somebody and said, that's what I want to be like him. There's another kid, Robert Reese. His father was Dr. Reese. He lived on Lawton Boulevard and Beach Street. Family physician. And he went to graduated. We were lifeguards together. My son had osteoporosis, something like that, in his knee as a kid. And that was sometime after 1963. That's when I bought the house on Harding Avenue. It was in 63. And so I called up Red. He's a redheaded kid, Robert Reese. I called him up. I said, Red, my kid's got this. And I said, don't worry about it. Bring him over here. We'll operate. And his office was in Huntington at the time. And we drove him out there. And fellow lifeguard took care of the kid. We walked out of the house. We had a nice police department had a nice plan. When he got discharged, Blue Cross, I think I paid $6 to get out of the hospital. I remember that, to buy crutches.
Wow.
Everything else was paid for. But we had to drive way out to Huntington because I didn't want to be. I wanted him to operate on him because he was my. I had great faith in his knowledge and his friendship with me. I'm jumping from one thing to another, but
Well, I want to go back to your wife. You were in the same schools in Long Beach?
no,
or how did
I'm
you
9
meet
years
her?
older. I was 9 years older than her.
Oh.
But I was driving in a police car. I saw her one day walking on Park Street. She worked for a phone company. And I said, oh my God, look at that girl. Oh. I said, that's the best looking thing I've ever seen her. I fell in love with her driving in a car. My father said, my son said, you stalked her.
You said
finally-
she worked for the phone company?
Did
she
worked.
work on Park Avenue in that
Right,
building?
yeah. She
Oh,
worked in
okay.
that office right there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So how did you get to meet her? Show
I
your
finally I pulled
badge?
her with the police. I pulled over. And I said, hello, I don't know if I said hello, but I engaged the conversation. And she had a beautiful smile on her face and everything. And we just, after that, we just continued. And the best thing that ever happened to me.
If you had to say, what would be your happiest memory in Long Beach?
Getting married to my wife. That was
And when was that?
I married her in 1956.
At St.
At St.
Mary's?
Mary's.
Okay.
St. Mary's was my parish house. I was baptized there. Everything. I buried my mother, my father, I buried my wife there, of course. St. Mary's has always been a very integral part of my growing up.
How about the saddest moment for you in
Say it again?
The saddest moment for you in Long Beach?
I get losing family members, but
Yeah.
if I had my life to live over again, I think I've made a few mistakes, of course, like anybody. I wouldn't change anything.
And it would definitely be in Long Beach,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I love this place is because I was born here and I come. We moved to Florida because my wife said, you said you get your time in, and her mother and father were in Florida. I said I want to move down and be with my mother and father. I said they won't have long to live, And I said, I want to live with them. No, not live in their house, but live in Florida next to them. So I said, okay. So we used to go down on vacation all the time to Florida. And I wasn't a good golfer. I used to go down and play golf, and I made friends with the golf pro in Florida. And I said, talking to him, I said, "You think there's a way you can get me an interview?" I said, "I'd like to retire and come down here and get a job with the school system." Besides going to law school, I'd gotten all my education credits through the GI Bill.
Wow.
So he said he got me an interview with the principal at the golf club. And eventually, a couple of years later, I think he called me up and said, "I got an opening for you." I said, "Okay." So I said to my wife, "What do you want to do?" I said, I got a job. I can retire from the police department and we can move to Florida. You can be with your father and mother." And she said, "Yes, we'll do that." So I said, "Okay." I said, "You sure?" She said, "Okay." So we closed up the house on Harding and we moved to Florida, and then we kept coming back and forth over Christmas. And then she always wanted to come back. Christmas, Easter, but definitely on Christmas. She loved going in to see the tree at Rockefeller Center. She loved the joy of Christmas. She loved Christmas of all the holidays. So we always went back and forth that way.
Can you tell us a little bit about the changes in Long Beach that you've noticed over the decades?
There used to be a lot of empty lots, of course.
Yeah.
And you always had good time. You could always walk from one place to another through an empty lot. And then the housing boom came up, and all these houses were built, and it took up a lot of empty lots. But in 1963, when we lived in, we first got married, we lived on Neptune Boulevard in an apartment at Neptune and Broadway. 66 Neptune, I remember the address. It was a one bedroom, three-room apartment. It was, and we lived there. Then she became pregnant, and she was still working with the phone company, but then she got pregnant, and she had been looking for houses, and she spotted this house on Dalton Street, and she said, "Okay, we'll go over and buy it, put a price in." And those houses were originally built, they cost $6,000. And so in around 1957, around there, we bought that house. It was $12,000. And I put a garage on it and a back room. It was only a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, but it had the radiant heat in the floor. In the winter, that was the greatest thing. You could walk barefoot in the hole. Especially in a bathroom, you know, the tile was warm. And then we bought that house and we sold it. Then she said, "I want a bigger house." So she'd get on her bike and she'd ride around, and she spotted the house on Harding Avenue, 138 Harding. And it belonged to a family named Jackowitz. That family is the one that built all of Lido. They built that construction company. They built all those homes originally in Lido. And the lots behind, now there are houses there, but the lot behind there was tennis courts. They're the tennis courts right there. And in the walk-in level, street level apartment, we went downstairs, and there were like showers downstairs, little stall showers, because when they came out from playing tennis, they'd shower in the cement block wall. And we had bought the house, and then we made an apartment downstairs. And we applied for 2-family designation, and we got it. And we used to rent the house in the summer
Mm.
only. And at that time, a lot of rich people in New York used to come down. He'd bring a nanny and a maid and everything, and they paid. I think we used to get around $2,000 for the 70 days. It was something called a school lease, 70 days from the end of June till after Labor Day, and we used to get about $2,000, something like that, 2,100, 22, depending. But they maintained the house beautifully, and we used to move downstairs. We used to leave all the furniture for them, of course, dishes and towels and everything. And but they cared for the place very nice. We became very friendly with all those tenants, and some of them repeated year after year because they loved Long Beach also. Let's see. You asked me another question.
Can I ask you a question about your time as a police officer?
Say it again.
I want to ask you about your time as a police officer. Like, what was the most interesting or exciting event that you can recall from that time?
I wrote a history of the police department when I was a sergeant. I couldn't find it. I probably left it in Florida.
Okay.
But they printed it at one time, and there nothing really stood out.
Okay.
Long Beach was a very easygoing place. You didn't have gigantic murders. Every now and then, I mean, there was one on Wisconsin Street. A mafia guy was shot and killed on Wisconsin Street. I remember that one. I was a detective at that time, and we investigated with that. But Nassau County Homicide overrode what we did. Nassau DA's office took care of that. But there was nothing sensational. The history of Long Beach, well, you know from with the Historical Society, Long Beach is really laid out very nicely. There's the canal section to mimic Venice, the canals. The President Streets where I live now are named after all the presidents, and it's sitting there right by the Lido Hotel, really a nice spot. Then the walk section, something around Lindell Boulevard around there, or maybe one after Lindell. Where the walks are, you know what they are. In fact, I was friendly with, I went to school with a kid named Richard Delury. His uncle, Mike Delury, was a councilman here. And I always, 6th June walk, I remember the house. I said, and I met him at one time, and he said to me, I said, I went to school with your brother Dick. He said, I know, Mike, he used to talk about you all the time. He said being a ball player, you became a local, not a hero, but a local know-it-all. So people know who you are.
Right.
When I got married in 1956, I had two altar boys, Edward and Eddie and Joe Hoffman, and their father lived on Lincoln Boulevard down by the bay. And the story got back later. The father had my picture from playing basketball in Scranton hanging in his house, and he used to tell his kids, that's who I want you to be like,
Wow.
just like him, you know.
Nice.
They told me that, but they were going back 56 when I got married. They were the altar boys at the wedding,
Wow.
and years later they worked for me on the beach. Everything evolves in Long Beach. I know the Everard family from working on the beach, and I know the Hoffman family that told me the story about the father putting my picture on the wall and saying, I want you to be like him.
But William Reynolds never came up as the founder
Well,
of Long Beach.
the
or
layout of
his
Long Beach.
insights?
The small streets in the West End, the original plan was the wide streets, Wyoming and the Maryland Avenue, the smaller streets, Louisiana, those streets, they were supposed to be for garbage and for delivery. That was the original layout of Reynolds' plan. In the West End, he said that was going to be it. The homes would face the wide street, and the narrow streets was for the collection of garbage and things like that. Later, obviously, when things went down sour, they brought in all those cottages from the homes in the there were army
I
barracks.
think it was Yaphank.
Yeah, something like that. They brought those army barracks houses and put them in the West End. So it all changed, but the original plan of Reynolds, the layout that he had, was Long Beach was going to be a magnificent place. It was just, you think about, oh my God, look at that. You have these canals, you have the President Street near the big hotel, and then the wide streets in the West End for garbage collection, the small streets. The bricks, that's so, I wish we still had those bricks. Obviously, they kept them here.
Yeah, well, Reynolds was a master builder from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Is there any reaction that you had at that time to Reynolds' political interests?
I didn't know him,
And you didn't hear much about him?
As a young kid growing up, I grew up in Italian. My mother and father were both Italian, and she hardly didn't speak English very, very long, or very much rather. And you grow up, you keep your mouth shut. You don't say anything. You don't ask questions. You just
Yeah. I can
you're a kid
understand
growing
that.
up, and
How about when the Mayor Edwards was shot? Do
Right.
you recall that personally?
I recall that. Yeah, I recall that. He had a son. I don't think I was in the same class as him, but he had a son that went to Long Beach High. But the cop's name was Dooley, and I went to school with the son, Dooley, and we kept in contact even after the shooting, because we were kids together, and he was just poor kid. His father got involved with the Benevolence Association, and the mayor was chopping him up a little bit, and they had a political argument apparently, and he lost his temper, and that's when he shot him. But his son, a nice kid, like I said, I kept in touch with him back and forth. Nice kid.
Did the son stay in Long Beach?
No, he moved out to Suffolk County. Yeah. But there was no cell phones at that time.
Right.
And stuff, but we used to write back and forth, call on the telephone, regular phone. At one time, I became an assistant to the city manager. I'd been working on the beach, and then he gave me, they said, we want you to take care of the beach park, collect the tickets, sell the tickets, and do that. And he said, we're not going to pay you extra, but I said, I want it, I'll take the job. I'll take both jobs. I said, but you got to give me a little help I said, I want to have the right to handling the money. I want that. I'm responsible for that. I said, I don't want any political people in there. I'll put the people in I want. I'm responsible for that. He said, okay, we can do that. And he gave me that job also.
Was this Vogel?
Yeah, Foster Vogel.
Foster Vogel.
And he gave me both jobs. I think by that time I was a lieutenant, I think.
Who was the commissioner at that time? Because he must have worked close.
There was a lot of commissioners, but they really didn't have that much to say, because there was that political leader, Phil Cohart, controlled
everything.
pretty much what was going to happen and what didn't happen.
Okay.
And but I told the city, not I told, I said, for me to take the job, I said, I want to make sure that I have control of the money. And in fact, now they have the ticket, you can buy a ticket. I started that program. That came in, and I used to bring bathrooms to the beach. I used to put bathrooms on the beach also. And all those, a lot of those things I started, and then they eventually kept them going. Trying to think. I'm trying to think who the there was a lot of police commissioners that passed by.
Was Ray Panza?
Say it again.
Panza?
At first, Ray Panza didn't like the idea of me having a lot of control over a lot of things. I just kept quiet and just did my job. I did that. I didn't make any waves. I didn't look to go interview people and jump, have a sign in front of my house. I'm here. Nothing. I just let it go. And then one time something happened, and he appointed me something. I forget what it was, but he took care of me after a while. He realized I wasn't going anyplace.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and he was sick and tired of fighting me, and we became friends after that. He realized that I wasn't a threat to his authority. We had some mutual friends. Some people that had businesses in New York, and they lived in Long Beach. And I know a lot of Long Beach people. They were jewelers and people that own a lot of big money people. And I became friends with them. We used to invite, there was a Tom McCabe and the McCabe family. Tom and I were on the police department together, and we used to play golf together also. And that McCabe family is again another old Long Beach family that. But anyway, there was when I lived on Dalton Street. Dalton Street in the Bay was Nugent family. That Mickey Nugent, that's Mickey Nugent's father. They lived at the corner. Another family was Cavazangian. They lived on Dalton Street. Just trying to think. On Boyd Street there was. I'll go back. When my mother and father first came to Long Beach in around 1917, somewhere in there, there were 2 apartment houses right behind the firehouse, 3-story apartment houses. And they lived there in the same apartment house with a family named Balabus. And Balabus was in the restaurant and bar business. And neither one of them spoke English very well. One was Italian and one was Greek, but they somehow or other they communicated with each other very well, and they were very friendly. And years later, my mother had to go to Dr. Govanelli. He had an office on National Boulevard and Beach Street, or Olive Street. Anyway, you got to get out of Long Beach. It's too cold. Go down to Florida and get out of cold weather. They didn't have much medicine, but one medicine was affecting something else, and she had water around her heart. And she went to Florida, and I was at Lindell School at the time, and I used to walk home from school, and nobody was home, of course. My father was working in the barber shop, and the grandmother, the Balabus lady that lived with my mother, took care of me. My mother's in Florida, obviously. So when I come home from school, my father didn't want to have me just sitting in the house. So he said, you stop and see Mrs. Balabas, and they owned a restaurant right there, right behind the railroad station, called the Pullman, Pullman, which in train language, that's the dining car. And they own that restaurant. I come home from school, they sit me down at the table by the end of the bar, and she always had some snack or something for me to eat. And she'd tell me to do my homework, and of course I didn't. But that we became very close friends at that time. And Paul Balabas was an electrician, and he did all the electric, and they were friendly. And they lived right across the street. Balabas family lived on Boyd Street, right across the street from the Madden family, who I married. So we became very friendly that way. And today, there's Lauren Rattan Balabas. She's friends with Jimmy Hayes, who owns Jimmy Hayes' Steakhouse. And I've always been to her Uncle Gene, because I remember before she was born, I knew her. And after she was born, I used to take them. We'd go up to the country, and all the streets are so dark up in the country, no street lights. I used to take them on called spook walks. I'd come up with a flashlight, I'd take all the kids, and we'd go for a walk on a dark street, and we used to sing a song. Anybody who's afraid better shout Yahoo! And the kids would go Yahoo! All the kids. And Lauren still remembers that to this day. So I'm Uncle Gene to her since whenever, it's a long time. In fact, there's the dance, the endless summer dance at the St. Ignatius on the 12th of a couple of days. And I always go and sit, she sends, we go there. I bring Tommy Daly with me. His wife passed away and he lost his license. So I drive him, like last night. We went and ate Chinese food together. Whenever I go someplace, I take him with me.
Good.
And he worked me on the beach also. But anyway, so we're going to go to that dance. And there's a girl who's a principal of a school named Lauren Moriarty. And there used to be a plumbing shop in the West End on Tennessee called Moriarty and Sherman. That's her uncle. But I went to school with Tommy Moriarty, her uncle. And everybody went to school together. There's only one school. That was it. You had to go to school. And all the ball players, no matter where you lived, we always were friends. I loved Long Beach. I was born here, and my roots are here. And what could be better than going to Florida in the winter and getting out of the cold weather and coming up here and getting out of the humidity in Florida? It's a perfect life.